Anger is one of the most powerful emotions we experience as human beings. It can rise in an instant, clouding our judgment, shaking our hearts, and pushing us to say or do things we later regret. Left unchecked, anger can destroy relationships, damage reputations, and even distance us from Allah. But Islam does not tell us to deny our human emotions. It teaches us how to manage them with wisdom, patience, and self-control. Anger itself is not always bad. Sometimes it comes from a sense of justice, from seeing wrongdoing and wanting to correct it. Even the prophets felt anger when Allah's commands were disrespected. But the difference is that their anger was always controlled, always for the sake of truth, and never for the sake of their own ego. That is what we are called to learn, to control anger rather than let anger control us. The Qur'an gives us a beautiful description of those who are closest to Allah, those who spend in ease and in hardship, and who restrain their anger, and who pardon people. Allah loves those who do good. Notice that Allah places restraining anger as a mark of goodness and a quality that He loves. It is not that these people never feel anger. It is that when it rises, they hold it back, they restrain it, and they respond with forgiveness instead of retaliation. One of the first steps to controlling anger is to recognize it early. When you feel your body heating up, your heart racing, your tongue ready to lash out, pause, remind yourself that this is the moment of test. You cannot control what others say or do, but you can control your response. The Prophet advised that if you are standing when anger comes, sit down. If you are sitting, then lie down. If the fire still burns, make wudu, for water puts out fire, and anger is from the fire of Shaitan. These simple actions break the momentum of anger, giving you a chance to breathe, to think, to cool down before acting. Another way to control anger is through silence. How many arguments escalate simply because both sides keep speaking, throwing words like arrows? Once a harsh word leaves the mouth, it cannot be taken back. Choosing silence when you are angry is not weakness, it is strength. It is choosing to protect your dignity and your deeds rather than losing them to reckless words. Forgiveness is also a shield against anger. When someone wrongs you, the natural response is to strike back, to demand justice. But Islam elevates us to a higher path. Forgive, and Allah will forgive you. Let go, and Allah will lift you. The one who forgives is not weak. They are strong enough to rise above their ego. And in that strength lies peace of heart, because carrying grudges only keeps the wound alive. Forgiveness, on the other hand, releases you from the chains of anger and allows you to move forward. We must also remember that uncontrolled anger is dangerous not only for our worldly life, but also for our spiritual life. The Prophet warned that anger is from Shaitan, and when we give in to it, we open the door for him to whisper, to push us towards sin, to break the bonds between family and friends. But when we resist, when we remember Allah in the moment of rage, the door closes and our faith grows stronger. Practical steps help too. Reflect regularly on your triggers. What situations make you angry? What words push your buttons? Prepare yourself in advance by reminding your heart that patience is more rewarding than reaction. Increase your dhikr, your prayers and your closeness to Allah, because a heart filled with remembrance is harder to shake with anger. And when you slip, as every human does, turn back quickly in repentance, seeking forgiveness and striving to do better next time. At its core, controlling anger the Islamic way is about mastering the self. It is about choosing patience over impulse, forgiveness over revenge, silence over harmful words, and remembrance over heedlessness. Every time you hold back your anger, you are not just avoiding conflict. You are earning Allah's love, building your character, and proving that your faith is stronger than your ego. Anger is one of the most powerful emotions that lives within the human heart. It rises suddenly, often without warning, and can push us to speak or act in ways that we later regret. But at its core, anger itself is not unnatural, nor is it always sinful. It is part of the human experience that Allah created within us. The real test is not whether we feel anger, but whether we control it or let it control us. Islam teaches us that anger in itself is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can arise from a sense of justice, from witnessing oppression, or from seeing the laws of Allah disrespected. The prophets themselves experienced anger in such situations, but their anger was always guided, balanced, and purposeful. It was never about their egos or personal grudges, it was about truth and justice. This shows us that the emotion of anger has a place, but it must always be kept within the limits of righteousness. The danger is when anger becomes uncontrolled. That is when it turns destructive. Unchecked anger can break families, ruin friendships, and destroy communities. It can push a person to say words that cannot be taken back or to take actions that cause permanent damage. The Prophet warned us about this when a man once asked him for advice, and he replied simply, "Do not get angry." The man repeated his question several times, and each time the answer was the same, "Do not get angry." This shows the weight of the issue. Controlling anger is not a small matter, but a key to protecting both our worldly life and our hereafter. When anger flares up, it often feels like a fire burning inside us. The Prophet explained that anger is from Shaitan, and Shaitan is created from fire. The solution, then, is to put out that fire before it consumes us. That is why he taught us practical steps. If you are standing, sit down. If you are sitting, then lie down. And if the anger still remains, make wudu, because water extinguishes fire. These simple actions help break the cycle, calm the body, and give the mind a moment to regain control. Anger becomes harmful when it blinds us. It clouds our judgment, making small issues seem huge and temporary frustrations feel unbearable. It pushes us to act without thinking, and often, when the storm passes, we are left with regret. How many times have people said words in anger that they wished they could take back? How many relationships have been broken, not because of a lack of love, but because of uncontrolled outbursts? Islam guides us to pause, to breathe, to remember Allah in those critical moments, so that we do not become slaves to our emotions. Controlling anger is a sign of true strength. Many people think that strength is about physical power or the ability to dominate others. But the Prophet said, "The strong man is not the one who overcomes others by his strength, but the strong man is the one who controls himself while angry." This flips the common idea of strength on its head. True strength is not in the fist, but in the heart. It is the ability to master your emotions, to rise above your ego, and to respond with patience when every part of you wants to react. We must also remember that every moment of anger is a moment of test. Allah is watching how we respond. If we lash out, we fall into the trap of Shaitan. If we restrain ourselves, we rise in the sight of Allah. The Qur'an praises those who control their anger, those who spend in ease and hardship, who restrain their anger, and who pardon people. Allah loves those who do good. Notice that Allah links controlling anger with His love. To hold back your rage is not just self-control. It is an act of worship, a means of earning Allah's pleasure. There are also practical ways to reduce the power of anger before it even arises. Regular prayer softens the heart, dhikr calms the soul, and fasting trains self-discipline. When the heart is filled with remembrance of Allah, it is less likely to be shaken by provocation. On the other hand, when the heart is empty of faith, anger finds fertile ground to grow. That is why strengthening the connection with Allah is one of the best shields against destructive anger. Ultimately, anger is part of our humanity. It is natural, it is real, and it will come to us in life. But Islam calls us not to deny it, not to let it explode uncontrollably, but to channel it with wisdom. To use it where it is just, to restrain it where it is harmful, and to remember Allah in the heat of the moment. Because every time you control your anger, you prove that your faith is stronger than your ego, and that your heart is guided by light, not consumed by fire. Every human being feels anger. It is a natural emotion placed in us by Allah. But what sets apart a believer from others is not the absence of anger, but the ability to restrain it for the sake of Allah. To hold back when every part of you wants to lash out, to remain calm when your ego is burning, to forgive when revenge is within reach. This is one of the most powerful acts of worship a believer can offer. Allah describes His beloved servants in the Qur'an as those who spend in ease and in hardship, who restrain their anger and who pardon people. Allah loves those who do good. Notice the words, not those who never feel anger, but those who restrain it. Restraint is the key. It means you are capable of responding, but you choose not to. You are strong enough to strike back, but you let go, and you do it not out of fear, not out of weakness, but purely for the sake of Allah. When you restrain your anger, you prove that your faith is stronger than your ego. Anger often whispers, show them who you are. Don't let them disrespect you. Don't let them get away with this. But when you pause and choose restraint, you silence the ego and remind yourself that Allah sees, Allah hears, and Allah will reward you more than any victory your anger could bring. The Prophet said, whoever restrains his anger, Allah will cover his faults. Whoever suppresses his rage, even though he could act upon it if he wished, Allah will fill his heart with contentment on the day of judgment. What greater reward could there be than having your heart filled with peace by the one who created it? Restraining anger is not easy. It requires deep patience, strong self-control, and a heart anchored in remembrance of Allah. But that is exactly why it carries such weight. Every time you restrain yourself, you are battling your nafs, fighting shaitan, and proving your loyalty to Allah. The world might see your silence as weakness, but in reality, it is one of the greatest forms of strength. The Prophet reminded us, the strong one is not the one who overcomes others with his physical power, but the strong one is the one who controls himself while angry. Restraint also protects your relationships. How many marriages, friendships, and families have been destroyed by words spoken in anger? A single outburst can undo years of love and trust. By restraining your anger, you protect not only yourself, but also the people around you. You create space for forgiveness, for reconciliation, for peace to return where conflict could have taken root. Another benefit of restraining anger for Allah's sake is that it earns you His forgiveness. The Qur'an links pardoning others with being pardoned by Allah. When you forgive, you are not excusing the wrong, but you are choosing to rise above it. You are saying, I leave this matter to Allah and I choose peace over revenge. And in return, Allah promises mercy upon you. Imagine standing before Him on the day of judgment, in need of forgiveness, and finding that He forgives you because you forgave others in moments of anger. Restraining anger also transforms your character. Over time, it makes you calmer, more thoughtful, more resilient. Instead of being easily provoked, you become steady. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond wisely. People begin to trust you, to feel safe around you, knowing you will not lash out at the smallest irritation. This is the mark of a true believer, someone who is a source of peace, not a source of harm. The practical steps taught in Islam help us on this path. When anger rises, seek refuge in Allah from shaitan. Change your position. If standing, sit down. If sitting, lie down. Make wudu, for anger is from fire, and water extinguishes fire. Keep silent until the storm passes, and above all, remind yourself, I am restraining this anger not for them, not for myself, but for Allah. This shift of intention transforms the act from mere self-control into an act of worship. Life will always test us with situations that provoke anger. People will wrong us, insult us, or test our patience. But in those moments, we have a choice to give in to our anger and lose reward, or to restrain it and earn Allah's love. Every time you choose restraint, you are writing a story of strength, faith, and trust in Allah's justice. You are proving that your heart belongs not to your ego, but to your Creator. Anger often behaves like a chain reaction. One person's harsh word sparks another's, one insult triggers retaliation, one outburst leads to another, until a small spark has grown into a blazing fire. Families are torn apart, friendships collapse, communities divide, all because no one chose to break the cycle. But Islam calls us to be the ones who stop the fire from spreading, to cut the chain before it grows stronger, to break the cycle of anger with patience, wisdom, and remembrance of Allah. The Qur'an gives us a timeless principle: repel evil with that which is better, and you will see that the one with whom you had enmity will become as though he were a close friend. This is not easy, but it is transformative. If someone speaks harshly and you respond with kindness, you surprise the cycle. If someone provokes you but you remain calm, you disarm the situation. The fire of anger only grows when it is fed. If you deny it fuel, it dies out. This is how believers break cycles that would otherwise continue endlessly. The Prophet taught us practical steps to stop anger from escalating. He said that if one of you feels angry while standing, then sit down. If the anger remains, then lie down. If it still lingers, perform wudu, for anger is from Shaitan, and Shaitan is created from fire, so water extinguishes it. These simple shifts are more than physical, they are spiritual resets. Sitting, lying down, or washing with water breaks the momentum of anger. They remind you to pause, breathe, and remember Allah before taking any action. Breaking the cycle of anger also requires guarding the tongue. Many fights would end quickly if just one person chose silence. The Prophet said, "When one of you is angry, let him keep silent." Words spoken in anger are like arrows. You cannot pull them back once they are released. By choosing silence, you prevent the cycle from moving forward. Even if your heart is boiling, holding your tongue protects your dignity, your relationships, and your book of deeds. Another way to break the cycle is to step away from the situation. When anger rises, staying in the same environment often fuels it further. Stepping away gives you space to cool down, to reflect, to remember Allah before responding. It is not weakness to walk away, it is wisdom. It is choosing to protect the relationship rather than winning an argument. Often, after time has passed, what felt unbearable in the heat of the moment no longer feels so heavy. Forgiveness is another powerful tool to break cycles of anger. If someone wrongs you and you choose revenge, the cycle continues. They strike back, you respond again, and bitterness grows deeper. But if you forgive, the chain breaks instantly. Forgiveness is not about saying the wrong was acceptable. It is about choosing peace over endless conflict. The Qur'an reminds us, "And let them pardon and overlook." Would you not love that Allah should forgive you? By forgiving others, you not only stop the cycle of anger, you also invite Allah's mercy upon yourself. Breaking the cycle also protects future generations. Children who grow up in homes filled with shouting and anger often repeat those patterns in their own lives, but when they see patience, restraint, and forgiveness, they learn a different way. By breaking the cycle in your own behavior, you are teaching your children, your family, and those around you how to respond with dignity and self-control. This is Sadaqah Jariyah, an ongoing charity, because the good you model spreads beyond you into the lives of others. We must also remember that every cycle of anger is a test from Allah. He places us in situations where we are provoked, not to see us fail, but to give us opportunities to grow. Every time you resist responding with anger, you are training your soul. Every time you choose patience over retaliation, you are polishing your heart. And every time you break the cycle for the sake of Allah, you are rising higher in His sight. Life will never be free of provocation. People will hurt us, insult us, and test us, but we do not have to be trapped in endless chains of reaction and retaliation. Islam gives us the tools to stop the fire, to refuse to fuel it, to respond with calm instead of rage. The strong are not those who strike hardest, but those who choose restraint. The wise are not those who argue loudest, but those who protect their peace. The beloved of Allah are not those who feed anger, but those who break its cycle. When anger rises, the tongue often becomes its first weapon. Words spill out faster than thought, sharp like knives, cutting deeper than physical wounds. A person may not lift their hand in anger, but the harm of their tongue can last for years, even for a lifetime. That is why Islam teaches us the wisdom of silence in the heat of anger, choosing restraint over reaction, calm over chaos, silence over harsh words. The Prophet gave us simple yet profound advice: when one of you is angry, let him remain silent. This is not because silence hides weakness, but because silence shields you from regret. Once a harsh word leaves your lips, it cannot be taken back. You may apologize, you may regret, but the wound remains. Silence, on the other hand, protects your dignity, preserves your relationships, and keeps your record clean before Allah. Think of how many conflicts escalate simply because neither side chooses silence. One person speaks, the other responds, voices rise, insults grow harsher, and what began as a small disagreement becomes a full-blown fight. But if even one person pauses, chooses silence, and refuses to continue, the fire loses its fuel. The cycle is broken. Silence has the power to disarm anger, to cool tempers, and to prevent hearts from hardening. The Qur'an reminds us to speak only what is best, and speak to people good words. Harsh speech is not only discouraged, it is a betrayal of our faith, because the believer is described as someone whose words bring peace, not pain. When you choose silence over harsh words, you are not just protecting yourself, you are fulfilling the Quranic command to guard your tongue and use it only for good. Silence also creates space for reflection. In the heat of anger, our judgment becomes clouded. We say things we don't truly mean, things we would never say if we were calm. But if we remain silent, even for a moment, we give ourselves the chance to think, is this worth saying? Will these words please Allah or anger Him? Will I regret this tomorrow? That pause can save us from a lifetime of regret. Choosing silence in anger is also an act of strength. Many people think that shouting louder or responding faster shows power. But the Prophet redefined strength when he said, "The strong is not the one who overcomes people by his strength, but the strong is the one who controls himself when angry." In moments of conflict, true strength is in mastering your tongue, not unleashing it. To remain silent when every part of you wants to respond is one of the greatest forms of self-control. Silence also protects relationships. Families, marriages, and friendships are often destroyed not by one big event, but by repeated harsh words spoken in anger. A single sentence can crush trust, break hearts, and create wounds that never fully heal. By choosing silence, you protect the love between you and others. You create space for calm discussion later, when emotions have cooled and wisdom can guide the conversation. Silence does not mean ignoring problems. It means waiting for the right time to address them in the right way with the right words. Another benefit of silence is that it denies Shaitan his victory. The Prophet told us that anger is from Shaitan. When we give in to anger and unleash harsh words, we are playing into his hands. But when we restrain ourselves, when we hold back our tongue, we close the door on his whispers. We turn the moment of weakness into a moment of worship, simply by remembering Allah and choosing silence. There are practical ways to help ourselves remain silent in anger. Taking deep breaths, making wudu, or even physically stepping away from the situation all help. But the most important is remembering Allah in the moment of rage. A heart filled with dhikr finds it easier to remain calm, while a heedless heart quickly gives in. That is why strengthening our relationship with Allah is the key to controlling not only our actions, but also our words. Silence is not about suppressing emotions or ignoring problems. It is about wisdom. It is about recognizing that the heat of anger is not the right time to speak. It is about saving your words for when they can heal, not when they will harm. It is about protecting your heart, your loved ones, and your hereafter from the destructive power of the tongue. Every time you choose silence over harsh words, you are proving that your faith is stronger than your ego, and that your character is guided by the light of Islam. Forgiveness is often misunderstood in today's world. Many people believe that to forgive is to surrender, to be weak, or to let someone get away with what they have done. But Islam flips this idea on its head. In reality, forgiveness is not weakness. It is one of the greatest signs of strength. It takes courage to let go when holding on feels easier. It takes self-control to forgive when revenge is within reach. It takes a heart connected to Allah to choose mercy over anger. The Qur'an reminds us again and again of the power of forgiveness. Allah says, "And the retribution for an evil act is an evil one like it, but whoever pardons and makes reconciliation, his reward is with Allah." Notice the beauty here. You are allowed to seek justice, but if you rise above and forgive, Allah Himself takes responsibility for your reward. What better guarantee could there be than to have your compensation secured by the Creator of the heavens and the earth? Forgiveness does not erase the wrong that was done. It does not mean what happened was acceptable. It means you are choosing not to let anger poison your heart. You are choosing peace over endless cycles of revenge. You are choosing to rise above your ego and hand the matter over to Allah, who is the most just and the best judge. This is not weakness. It is immense strength. The Prophet embodied forgiveness in ways that leave us in awe. After years of persecution, when he finally returned to Makkah victorious, he had the power to punish his enemies, the very people who had tortured, mocked, and driven him out. Yet what did he say to them? "Go, for you are free." This was not weakness. It was the ultimate show of strength. In that moment of forgiveness, hearts softened, enemies became companions, and the light of Islam spread further. His forgiveness changed lives in ways revenge never could. Forgiveness is also a reflection of our relationship with Allah. Every day we commit sins knowingly and unknowingly. Every day we fall short of the standards Allah has set, and yet we raise our hands and say, "Oh Allah, forgive me," and He does. If we expect Allah's mercy, should we not also show mercy to others? The Qur'an reminds us, "Let them pardon and overlook." Would you not love for Allah to forgive you, and Allah is forgiving, merciful? Forgiving others is one of the clearest ways to invite Allah's forgiveness upon ourselves. There is deep freedom in forgiveness. Anger and grudges weigh heavily on the heart. Carrying resentment is like carrying a burning coal, hoping it will harm the other person, when in reality it only burns you. Forgiveness releases you from that burden. It allows you to heal, to move forward, to find peace. It does not make the other person right, but it makes you free. Forgiveness is also an act of courage in relationships. Families break apart, friendships end, and communities fracture because people refuse to forgive. A single mistake, a harsh word, or a misunderstanding can grow into a wall of bitterness if forgiveness is withheld. But when one person decides to forgive, that wall begins to crumble. Forgiveness creates room for healing, for reconciliation, for love to return where anger once lived. True forgiveness is not always immediate, nor is it always easy. Sometimes the wound is deep and the hurt takes time to heal. Islam does not demand that we ignore our pain. Instead, it encourages us to rise above it when we are able, to seek justice when needed, but to recognize that forgiveness is a higher path. Even if the other person never apologizes, choosing forgiveness is still a gift you give to your own heart and soul. The Prophet said, "Charity does not decrease wealth. No one forgives except that Allah increases him in honor, and no one humbles himself for the sake of Allah except that Allah raises him." Forgiveness does not lower you, it elevates you. It brings honor in this world and reward in the next. Every time you forgive, you are not losing. You are gaining in ways that only Allah can measure. Ultimately, forgiveness is strength because it requires mastery over the self. Anyone can lash out in anger, anyone can hold a grudge, but to rise above, to let go, to forgive purely for Allah's sake, that is the work of the strong. It is the work of those who value peace over pride, faith over ego, the eternal over the temporary.